In October 2023, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed two controversial bills into law, known collectively as the California Climate Accountability Package. These bills represent a step towards increasing corporate transparency regarding greenhouse gas emissions and climate risk disclosures. Senate Bill 253 and Senate Bill 261 will require companies doing business in California to adhere to new reporting standards, with reporting starting as early as 2026. So, what exactly do these bills entail, and how will they impact your business? Let's break it down. SB 253 applies to companies with annual revenues exceeding $1 billion. These companies must report their greenhouse gas emissions as follows. These reports must be submitted to an emissions reporting organization established by the state. SB 261 applies to companies with annual revenues over $500 million. These companies will need to report the following. Reports under SB 261 must be made publicly available on the company's website. Regardless of whether your business falls under either bill, the impact could be substantial, as these new regulations will require companies to consider and quantify greenhouse gas impacts within their supply chains. So, what next steps can you take now to prepare? Brian Burns and Lisa Becker sit down to discuss next steps.
Hi, Lisa. Obviously, there's a lot of information to digest under these bills, and I'm sure for many it can feel overwhelming. What would you say is a good first step for someone to take?
So I would say for companies that are potentially going to be impacted by these regulations, the first step would be to identify where you're currently at in the journey for developing your greenhouse gas inventory. Do you have that greenhouse gas inventory already created? Have you done any exercises to identify climate-related financial risk within your organization? If you've done either of those, have you done those using a specific framework, such as some of the global frameworks that are available under these reporting requirements? All of that would really help to inform whether or not your company's at kind of the initial stages of this journey or further down the road, and really considering how these regulations and the requirements therein can support your company's strategic planning as well as the needs of your company and its stakeholders.
Great information, Lisa. So after you have that mapped out, what's the next step?
So next, you'd want to identify any gaps between your current reporting and what would be required under these new regulations. So to do that, you'd look at any additional data or reporting that you would need to comply. And also, you may see some additional data requests coming from key customers who also are required to comply under these new regulations. So really understanding these gaps is critical to prepare for what these regulations will require as it relates to what you're currently doing around greenhouse gas emissions and where you'll need to report going forward.
So what comes next after you identify those gaps?
It's important to also consider the perspectives of owners, stakeholders, and leadership within your organization as far as how these different regulations will impact your organization, and to develop a strategy of how to move forward. Often we get hung up in just following the regulatory requirements, but it's really critical to think about the broader strategic direction of your organization. And how do you meet these customer needs, these regulatory needs, but also think about the trajectory of your organization and what this reporting can do to provide more information, more insights, and really align with that broader strategy.
Would you also say that it's important that everyone is involved?
So I wouldn't say that necessarily everyone needs to be involved in this process, but it is critical to engage team members that are either involved in collecting the information needed under these regulations, as well as leaders that can consider how these disclosures should work alongside other corporate reporting requirements, as well as thinking more broadly about long-term business objectives. So a natural place to start is thinking about the financial reporting that the company is already doing and what systems are in place to enable that financial reporting to be successful. Likely there's things that can be borrowed there. So having team members that can think about where there's crossover with existing reporting requirements, as well as considering risk and how that relates to operational decisions going forward to ensure that all types of risk are included in those business decisions. So it's important to think about these steps early and to plan for who needs to be at the table to really pull together this integrated reporting that would now be required under these new regulations.
Stay informed, stay prepared. For more information, review Pinion's resource guide or contact a Pinion advisor today.